here's an interesting story, which is a complete sidetrack. But before I was born, when my mom was pregnant, my dad basically, uh, as he was walking down the street, people would be yelling at him, "Hey, you freaking hippie!" Right? Because he had long hair and he was that classic. It was that time period, and so he and this is how I would start my movie if I was ever going to start a movie about myself. It would be this scene because some college kids saw my dad and were like, "Hey, can you get us some cannabis?" You know what I mean? It was like that classic vibe where they just didn't know it was their first time, and he was like, yeah, hold on a second." And he literally went down to Chinatown with some weed in his hand, showed it to a guy at a market, and said, "Can you make me a pound of this?" Right. And the guy just whipped up some herbs, you know what I mean, to make it look kind of like cannabis. So it's like literally like the first one of the first sort of jack moves, you know what I mean? And so my dad was total hustler, New York hustler. I don't know how much he charged these kids, but it was like a pound of weed, right? And then basically got the money in his hand and ran back to the house and packed up all his shit. And that's when they moved to Woodstock, because it was like they were living in the Lower East Side. So it was kind of like, okay, we need to get out of here. And he was like, "Get in the car, let's go." And he just basically got to the cab and said, "Take us to Woodstock." And that's like, maybe a couple hour drive, hour and a half, hour and 45-minute drive. So it was a big taxi ride for the moment. But that was his little way to get out of the city, to get up to the spot where everybody needed to be. And that's where I was born after that. So for me, that's always a good start to a movie. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
yo,
great. That's
right?
great.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
absolutely. How
hilarious.
much was that pound about? Like, how much do you think like he got for that? Like, I was wondering.
I mean, I think back then the pounds were like $300, $400, something like that.
Oh, because it was all we hadn't hit like good weed yet, so it was
Oh
all.
no, this is in 1968. So
Oh,
this
and the
is like
price.
when
Okay.
this is
Mhm.
when weed was maybe, yeah, $200-300 a pound, something like that, I'd say, or $300 probably a pound. So enough for a cab drive, that's for sure.
That's awesome. That's probably worth a lot more back then too, huh?
Yeah, so basically they moved to Woodstock, didn't stay together, so that's why they separated after that. Then I went to after South America, we came back. We were in New York. We kind of did a bi-coastal thing. We'd go New York, LA, New York, LA, and then in between, my grandparents lived in Rhode Island, so I'd go to Rhode Island. And then what happened was uh, I liked Rhode Island because of this stability, and as a kid, you kind of want that stability. So even though LA, I always had fun. New York and LA was like me growing up with no rules, kind of feral child. Uh, Complete like things that now, if I look at my own kid, I'm like, there's no way I would let him run around New York on his own. But I was doing that when I was really young, 9, 10, 11, 12. We were like getting on the subway, going places, doing things. And in California, we were also left to kind of run feral because, we had lots of groups of friends, like my friend Mojave, who you guys have met. His
Yeah.
family and our family kind of all got together as a big very much of that time period. Everything was like, because his family was also part of the same group of Eureka, right? So we were all like kind of wouldn't say it's a commune necessarily, because we didn't live like all together all the time, but we all kind of like, you know, if we had an apartment building, we all lived in 3 apartments right next to each other, and we all just kind of, people slept where they wanted to sleep and did what they wanted. It's kind of very open and cool vibe. So that was a little bit. But then I liked the idea of the structure at my grandmother's, because it was kind of like, hey, I got friends. I go to school. I got my friends. I come home. I do my things. I go out. I go into the woods or whatever. So I kind of had that more normal life there. And then when I would live with my mom, it would be like the kind of rock and roll lifestyle. Maybe she was going out with Robert Downey Sr. for about 5 years. So I had that whole like Hollywood lifestyle as a kid.